the whole world more than other divine influence which are not so well recognized to it. And so it is with the other Chusim. Hashem hears, Kaviochel Hashem can speak, and he can use, as it were, the effect of the mouth to affect all of it. And they all indicate very, very high connections with Hashem. Well, that's what he's told us so far after those first questions. And then the Rabbi goes on to say that through Avodas HaTfilah, through prayer, we make the neshama being down and imprisoned inside the guf and the physical world, the main connection with Hashem is through prayer. And therefore the author of this Maimah, the Rebbe Rashab, when he founded the yeshiva Tomchei Tmimim, and he founded the yeshiva, he said that one of the principal aims in founding Tomchei Tmimim was to see that the Bochurim should learn and they should become accustomed how to daven properly and how to make our emphasis on Avodas HaTfilah. That's why every now and then I give a bit of a lecture to Shmuel, not in a bad way, that he has to slow down a bit. Sometimes he gets very carried away, and he gets, so we have to slow down, take it easy. Because in Tomchei Tmimim, there was a tremendous emphasis on tefillah. And so through the union of tefillah, well, that's how we make our kesher with Hashem. And we're going to see that this union of Hashem's Chusim, that, as it were, expresses itself also in the personal life of a Yid through his Avodas HaTfilah. And then we're going to come to something we haven't mentioned so far, and that is that beyond the 10 powers, you also have very high aspects of the soul, Hayei Yechida. You have what they call the Etzem HaNefesh. They're the Atzmias of the Nefesh. The 10 powers are like ornaments of the Nefesh. They're koichot. They're powers given forth from the men in order to understand or make kesser with the world and with other people. Of a Hayei Yechida are very high. And the Inavent Yechida in its Pnimias, a Yechida is what's called Oineg, Tanug, Oineg. And Oineg is the highest of all the all-enveloping powers of the soul. And those are Oineg and Ratzon. Ratzon, will, is a very high, but it's what we call an all-enveloping power. It's from the etzem of the nefesh, therefore it envelops everything. And if you want something, you get everything moving, yeah? All of your aspects of your soul come to the ball game because you want something very much. So even higher than that, how do you want? What starts you off that you want? Why should you direct your power of Ratzon in a certain direction? So that's because deep inside you have Oineg, you're mitaneg, you have this, Oineg is in the way of deveikus, klape maila. When you become really dov, Oineg is something, you forget everything else. And you, as it were, go up into a world of cleavage to that particular inyan. Yeah. Mashenkin will is how you say, oh yeah, I really want to get more of that, I want to be connected with that, I want to bring it to me in a much more practical way. So therefore, Rotzen is Davkei, the word Rotzen is to run, also Rotzon is based on the idea of running toward. The will goes down and gets working. So those are Tainug and Rotzen. So davening's got to do with everything. So let's see what he says. And he said, it's right down near the bottom. It's probably about 12, 13 lines up from the bottom Dehine ba'aveda betfila yesh beis inyonim. Do you have it? Okay, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. My estimate was right. It's 12 lines from the bottom of page Tzadi.
Dehine?
Yeah, everybody have it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he says, Dehine ba'aveda betfila yesh beis inyonim. Hasoga Elokis v'hatainug shemintaneg al ha'elokut. So the Rabbi said there are two inyanim in davening. The first and basic inyan in davening is understanding, what we call hasoga. Therefore in Lubavitch it was always an essential thing, if you wanted to really get into davening, that you had to think before davening. I've got to be careful. I might be making a revolution here. And everybody was sitting thinking, but that you're supposed to do before davening, not after the davening's already started. But you have to spend time thinking in what you have understood. Hasoga means grasping of the seichel that I've understood certain inyanim, and by understanding them, I'm prompted to what? To think about them, yeah, as it were, to turn them over in my mind. And that's called hitbonanut. That's called what the Rabbi, all of them, called hitbonanut, right? So, the Rebbe said that you've got hasoga elokis, but then even higher than that, he said, "V'tainug shemitzanig al ha'elokut." One thing is I understand it, but he said that once I've understood it in a profound way, we're not talking about this, chick-chock of, I understood this and I understood that, but you understood in a profound way. And that leads you then that you go up into a more all-enveloping part of your soul, and you are mitaneg. You feel pleasure and oineg on elokus. Understanding is a usage of the mind. Yeah, how do you call it? What we call a sikli. It's a koyach seichel, and I come to understand differently. Tainug is a much higher thing. Tainug means that I feel a tremendous cleavage by way of involving all of my soul, and that's called tainug. And the Sefer Hayei says that there's nothing higher than tainug. Tainug is the highest. That's the highest part of the nefesh. After that is only etzem sheba etzem. But the highest of the koyres makivim is the oineg. So what's supposed to happen when you daven? What is supposed to happen when you daven? You're first of all supposed to learn. Then you're supposed to be masig, you're supposed to grasp clearly what you learn, and then after you've grasped clearly what you learn, you have to turn that over in your mind. However, that leads and opens up a gateway to tainug. It's brought down that in Bina, Hashem sends the tainug down into the koyach of understanding. If it's functioning right, He sends down tainug into that. You follow? You feel this tremendous devegas. Yeah, they tell a story about one of the Talmidim in Tonvei Tumim. You know the story. One of the Bocharim in Tonvei Tumim, when the Rebbe Rashab founded it. He was called Reb David Horodoka, he was called. They used to call everybody on the name of the town where they came from. Reb David this, not necessarily that was his name, but that was his town that he came from. And that's the way they used to refer to people. So he was called Reb David Horodoka, and his name was Braverman, his real name, but he was the most amazing person. And he took literally and seriously, I could tell you more stories about this, but this is a class and we're running short of time. But there were certain Bocharim that they really took this very seriously, and they became what are called in Lubavitch the Oivdim. They were called the Oivdim. And those who didn't get so involved, those who were more, they were called the regulars. And they used to make fun a bit of the Oivdim. They should realize that there's a little bit of Latonis made of the great Oivdim. Well, that's an old thing in Lubavitch. Even in the original Lubavitch, there was a certain trace of it. But that's not for publication. That's just, but unfortunately. So anyway, what happened with Reb David Horodoker, that he used to go away after the davening had finished in Tov Mim, and he had a little shul, but they had already davened a long time ago, and the shul was quiet, it was empty, and he would go into that shul, and he would daven, and he would become so involved in the oineg part of tefillah that he would just completely, how he could, be shut off, And once, unusually, the Rebbe Rashab visited in the morning that shul. He had to meet the Rabbi there, and he wanted to give over a very important message for the people who were davening that shul, the Rebbe Rashab. So he met the Rabbi of the shul, inside that shul. So it's like it's written that Moshe Rabbeinu came out to meet Israel. So Rashi says, Moshe Rabbeinu yatsa, and me lo yatsa, everybody, the Chassidim, all followed the river. You understand? Moshe Rabbeinu went out, so everybody followed. So the same thing, when the Rebbe Rashab, when he went out, all the Chassidim and everybody followed after him. So by the time the Rebbe came into the shul, he was followed by a Hamon Chogeg, a tremendous yontif group of people followed him into the shul. They wanted to see what he was going to say and what's happening. So here's this David Horodoker, he's sitting there in that shul, and he was davening, and he was in the middle of the davening. All of a sudden the Rebbe Rashab comes into the, there's a tremendous crowd of people. So normally, what would you expect? That a guy would all of a sudden, straighten up, he would jump up from his davening, and he would also want to hear or pay attention or become botter, or something would happen, But what happened with him was that he didn't know, he didn't even sense, or he didn't have any awareness of what is happening, you follow? He was so oinig inside his davening that he just got carried away. Like some people, when they hear a beautiful nigun or a beautiful music, they just sort of, but in a very high level, he was carried away. So the Rebbe Rashab saw him davening, and he was very pleased, very taken by it. And so the Rebbe Rashab walked over and stood near where he was davening. So everybody was mind-boggled. He never jumped up, he just kept, even though the Rebbe Rashab was standing fairly close to him, not far away, he's standing fairly close. So the Rebbe Rashab looked at him and smiled, and then he said, "Oh, das hab ich gemeint. That's what I meant when I found it, Tom H. Well, that's what I meant, you understand? In other words, that even I'm here, and he doesn't sense it, that means he's really in it, you understand? And so the Rebbe Rashab says, well, that's what he meant with Tom H. You follow? So I've got to be careful around here. You guys take it easy, and next thing I'll have somebody sitting in a door. But I must admit that I wouldn't mind if that happened, but I might get myself into difficulty. Anyway, so what happens is that after you've understood Bahassoga, then you have to have Taina Galakli. Oh? If a Mela, that's very important. Now just imagine Hashem in heaven. Hashem Bashamayim. Yeah. And all of a sudden he sees you're going out of the koiches with Oinig about him. So what does Hashem, how does he react to that? He's also mitaneg. Hashem has tainu about that. So what does he do? he gives off the tainug, the tainug goes out from him, and so the tainug comes back to you, and you ultimately, you end up feeling Hashem's tainug, you follow? You don't, it's not just your tainug anymore, but he sends a tainug Eloki into you, you understand? And then you live a different way. And that's what we said in reference to Sara, that she got Chayin Elohim. So a person like that, he's already living a different, on a different plane, on a different level altogether, because the divine oineg is shining into him. You follow? In other words, that everything Hashem does is like, in a way, midah connected midah. You have to measurement against measurement, even on a high level like that. And therefore, if you reach a certain oineg, and that's what you're supposed to reach, yeah, then Hashem, as it were, he gives you his, he's very pleased about that, Hashem. Yeah? He's tremendously mitaneg. And so he gives down divine oineg. And that's the ultimate perfection of the turning of a human being to Hashem. And that's the whole meaning of tefillah. You follow? So in original Lubavitch, there were a few guys that they took this seriously. You understand? And this David Haradoka, he was one of them. Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's another story about the Rabbi Rashab, that he went out gathering Mayim Shalom for the matzahs. The Rabbi used to go, and he had there was a river alongside Lubavitch. Mayim Shalom, not far from the courtyard of the yeshiva, there was a beautiful river. So the Rabbi Rashab used to go to gather Mayim Shalom, and he had a long, he used to stand on the bank of the river, come on, hundreds of others used to stand around, and he would put out this, and he had a little kli at the end of this long rod, and with that he would draw the Mayim Shalom and put it into a bigger kli on the bank. So once the Rebbe Rashab came out, and all the Bochrim, they'd gone into the front position, they were in the yeshiva, so they knew more than the Balabatim what was happening. And so they got into like the front line, and the Rebbe came down, to gather the Mayim Shalom. All of a sudden, the Rebbe turned to the right, and he looked at a certain bocher. The Rebbe sort of looked at him for a minute. At the very key moment like this, he looked at a bocher, and then he turned back and he gathered the Mayim Shalom. So later, when they came back with the Mayim Shalom, one of the leading Siddim asked the Rebbe Rashab, why did he look to the right? So why did he look at that bocher? And he was called Reb Shimshon Vitebsko. That was his name. He was also an amazing, he later died, unfortunately, al Kiddush Hashem. Yeah, he was killed, I think, by the Nazis later. I don't know exactly, but he had a tragic life, but he was a very amazing, he was a bocher at that time. So somebody from the leading Siddim asked the Rebbe Rashab, why did he look to the right? He said, because at that moment, he said, Shimshon Vitebske ot yehat gilu yechidah shebenefesh. He said he had the yechidah shebenefesh was begolui by him. Yeah. He said, so that attracted my attention. The Rebbe said that caught his notice, so he turned aside. You understand? So he was walking around with Gili Ha'oinig, and he had it in what we might say, he had it in his pocket. So there were guys who took all this, they took it very seriously. So the Rebbe says that you got a soger and then you have oineg. So he says, they're not from the same source. Like we pointed out, Seichel is one of the 10 powers, and it's got very high in Yonim, in Pnimius HaSeichel, Pnimius HaSoger, but Oinig is a makiv, it's from the Etzem HaNeshama. So they're two different in Yonim. He said, Da Soger, B'moker Choitvo, B'shor Harishon, he said, Hasoga, in the place from whence it's dug out, that you choitz means like where you dig it in a quarry, you get to the source of the stone that you want, and you dig it out. That's called choitz, the place of its source, where it derives from. He said, Makoya chutzvah b'shorish harishon, in its original first shoirish, who mipchinas chitonis hakli the chokma datzilas. He said, the fact that you understand something is that chokma iloah in olam atzila. That's the beginning of how Hashem makes it possible that you should be able to understand something. That's the first sphere, which is the appearance of chokma. And then the chitonius of chokma is mashpia to bina. And bina is where you actually understand. So he said, in order to be mashpia Hashem in a way that you should be able to understand at least something in bina, he gives from the chitonius of chokma, not the inner pnimis, because the inner pnimis is though again in him. You can't get to that. But the chitonius, the chitonius, he can give, but the pneumius, he gives it the chitonius, but it's supposed to come into pneumius. Hashem gives from the chitonius of the kli, not the oil, because the oil of chokmah is also very high, but the vessel is the koher of limitation, so we can give that over in a way that it'll come to you. Of the pneumius of chokmah goes only to him. That's Dorim. So he said that Nimta, that the Shurish of Asoga is from the Chitonias of the Kli of Sfiras HaChokmah in Atzilah. Akamoi, he says, Gidel Ha'isa Mi'amazol. You know, the Midrash tells us that every grass has got a koher rukni which gives it the power to grow and pushes it, as it were, upward. So in the same way, the chitonius of the kli of chokmah, that's like the mazal, that's the koher ruchni, but it's pushing the other way. It's pushing downwards, that you should have a thing called understanding in your mind, right? In other words, that the way the mazal inside every piece of grass helps it grow, so the koher of the chitonius of the kli of chokmah helps you, makes what is divine into a graspable and approachable thing on your part. He said, okay, now, the nishmas Avram, the bria, mipchinas chesed. He said that the nishoma of Avram Avinu, which is the Indian from chesed, that's from Atzilas. But he said the way it expresses itself, for the sake of the world and for the sake of his life and his ashpor, it goes into Bria, into Olam Bria. So how does it get down into Olam Bria? It goes through its kli, and it goes through the chitonias of its kli, which is mashpia into Bria. Very similar to what the Alter Rebbe brings in the Geras HaKodesh in Tanya about the neshama of Avram Avinu. He said, V'chein, he said, Asoga Shaloi, the same way, Avram Avinu, the Asoga that he had was Mepchinas HaChokmah. He said, Harizeh Ba'ein Arov. That doesn't really have any, how do you call it, direct connection with how it was, even in the chitonius of the Kli, of Atzilah. And by the time it comes down in a way that you're able to appreciate it, it's already a chitonius and a tremendous Yerida. So he said that's what we call in Chasiduss Ein Arog. It's like incomparable. The word Ein Arog means you can't compare that revelation to its source, to where it comes from. When I'm masik, of course, I've been masik through all sorts of Yeridas that Hashem has come down toward me that I should be able to understand something of where he's coming from. No way that I have any real reference to that. Or that's the union of the Asoga, even of Avram Avinu. That was also Einarov. Delochein, and therefore, what did Avram Avinu say about himself in last week's Parsha? He said, Vanoichi ofo v'efer. I am, how do you call it, dust and ashes, you understand? And what is dust and ashes? Leftovers, bilvad. For example, if you burn something nice, it's got, how do you call it, aish and ruach and mayim and all sorts of good things in it. When you burn it, it leaves over the ash. And the ash is just a, how do you call it, a leftover. It's, you know, it's not originally what was there. For example, if I were to burn that, I wouldn't do that so you can drink your coffee. But
It's empty, you're welcome.
this, let's say, that's quite an impressive thing at the moment, particularly that it was coffee for him. So it's got quite, it's quite an impressive. But if I burn it, it's just a leftover ashes. You follow? And therefore, Rabbi said, well, how much more so dust? Dust is even lower than ashes. And therefore, Rabbi said about himself and his whole understanding and his whole appreciation, he said, you know, I'm just dust compared to the source from where all of this comes. Abu, he said, Atainu, Shemisanik, Benafshi, Al Hoel Akus, Arizim Mepinus Havolim Hoel Yoinim. Oi, oi. You know that Kohelet said, Hevel 7 times all over. Yeah, he said, tall, hot air, Hevel. So the Zohar Kodesh says those Hevels are very, very high levels. And they are the Chushim of Hashem. We spoke before about the Chushim, the 5 Chushim. Well, even though they come like hot air, but they got the real McCoy. They come in a way of hot air, but they have in themselves the real, how do you call it, the real etem of Ein Tov. And therefore, when you are Mishani, it's only a horror also to give it the emissary, oinig. But he said that is the hevel, that is from the 7 habolim, and therefore he said, V'zeh davke ma'oira b'chinas pnimias v'atzmas ha'tainug. Well, that's ma'oira by Hashem, the pnimias of his tainug, not just stone. No, that's the emissary pressure that Hashem has in the creation. If he sees that you're mitaneg, then he has most amazing tainuk, and he sends it to you through the havolim, yeah, through the 7 havolim, and they bring down Atmas Ein Tov. Validei zeh hu gam kein agiloi, yeah, the oizen oper. Oizen oper are these, how do you call it, the hearing and the speaking. That is the, how do you call it, the chushim of Hashem, yeah. Bepinas toisvas. Yeah, it's an additional and ribui. Hashem gives down unbelievable influence into the world because he saw that you are mitaneg. So he gives down his oinig, and in the oinig guf of the havolim, yeah, and that's the pnimis v'atzmias of Hashem's oinig. So what happened? Things get frailer. You know, the world lives with Gilei Elokus. You follow? Aye, aye, aye.
Amen.
And therefore, I once heard from Polikano, well, he saw the davening at Tom Chetmimim. He saw the davening. He used to come davening in our minyan. Yeah. And he said, because the minyan that I had in Kochaba with the Pochim, he said it reminds him of the minyan in Tom. That's what he said. That's the biggest compliment I ever had. You follow? He said, it reminds me. And he said, mit gefühlt Elokus. He said, you felt divinity. In other words, everything came down and it gets liberty. You follow? Avamela, he said, oh, that's Gam kind of Diba, Valkain, Tzorik Leis avoid a Besimcha. Oh, he said, therefore the avoid has to be Besimcha. If you will come to what you're supposed to come, then you will get a Gilei Elokus Beribi. So in order to be a kli for that, you have to be frailer, you have to be levidik, and it has to be Besimcha. So I'll be thrown out of here soon. So I have to close off for the moment. But you have to realize that the whole Aveda is Simcha. That's going to be the whole